My name is Richard, and I'm a construction project manager for one of the largest building companies in Dallas, Texas. I've been married to Vanessa for 8 years, and until recently, I thought we had the perfect marriage. She's 32, works at a prestigious advertising agency downtown, and has always been the life of every party we attended together. Our house in the suburbs was everything we dreamed of when we got married. White picket fence, 2-car garage, and a backyard where we planned to watch our future children play. Vanessa had always been social, constantly going out with her girlfriends from work and college. Chloe, Meredith, and Gabriella were her closest friends, and I'd grown used to her weekend adventures with them. It was a typical Friday evening in March when everything started to unravel, though I wouldn't realize it for days. I was sitting in our living room, watching the evening news, and enjoying a beer after a long week of managing the construction of a new downtown office complex. Vanessa walked in from the bedroom, and I could smell her expensive perfume from across the room. She was wearing a black cocktail dress that hugged her curves perfectly, the same one I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. "Honey, I'm going out tomorrow night for Chloe's birthday celebration," she announced, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. "The girls and I planned a big night out. You know how it is, we've been planning this for weeks." I glanced up from the television. "That sounds great, babe. Where are you planning to go?" "Oh, probably dinner somewhere nice, maybe some dancing afterward. Meredith found this new place downtown that's supposed to be amazing." She was applying lipstick now, that deep red shade that always drove me crazy. "Don't wait up for me. You know how these girls' nights can go." I smiled and nodded. After 8 years of marriage, I'd learned not to question her social life. Trust was the foundation of our relationship, or so I believed. "Just be safe and have fun. Tell the girls I said happy birthday to Chloe." "Will do," she said, walking over to kiss me on the forehead. Her lips felt warm against my skin, and I caught another whiff of that intoxicating perfume. "Love you. Love you too." Saturday morning arrived with the usual weekend routine. I made coffee while Vanessa took her time getting ready upstairs. I could hear her moving around, opening and closing drawers, the hairdryer running. She always took extra time preparing for nights out with the girls. When she finally came downstairs, she looked stunning. The black dress fit her like it was custom-made, and she'd paired it with the gold bracelet I'd given her for her birthday. Her blonde hair was styled in loose waves that cascaded over her shoulders. "Wow," I said, wrapping my arms around her waist. "You look incredible. The girls are going to be jealous." She smiled, but something in her eyes seemed different. There was an excitement there that I hadn't seen in a while, but also what looked like nervousness. "Thank you, sweetie. I'm really looking forward to tonight. What time are you meeting them?" 7 at Meredith's place. We're going to have some pre-dinner drinks there first." She grabbed her purse from the counter, checking to make sure she had everything. "I'll probably be really late, so don't worry if I'm not back until after midnight." I kissed her goodbye and watched from the window as she drove away in her silver BMW. Something felt off, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was. Maybe it was just the stress from work affecting my judgment. That evening, I decided to invite my buddy Steve over to watch the Mavericks game. We ordered pizza and spent the night yelling at the television, completely absorbed in the game. Dallas was playing the Lakers, and it went into overtime. I barely thought about Vanessa until Steve left around 11:30. She came home at 1:47 a.m. I remember the exact time because I glanced at the bedside clock when I heard her car in the driveway. She slipped into bed quietly, probably thinking I was asleep. "How was the party?" I whispered in the darkness. "Oh, you're awake," she said, sounding slightly startled. "It was wonderful. We had such a great time. The restaurant was incredible, and we danced for hours afterward." "Good, I'm glad you enjoyed yourself." She curled up next to me, and I could smell alcohol on her breath mixed with that same perfume from earlier. But there was something else, something I couldn't identify. A different cologne, perhaps? I dismissed the thought as paranoia. Sunday passed uneventfully. Vanessa seemed tired but happy, spending most of the day lounging around the house in her pajamas. She made her famous pancakes for breakfast, and we spent the afternoon watching movies on the couch. It felt like old times, comfortable and familiar. Monday morning brought the usual chaos of returning to work. The office building project was hitting a critical phase, and I had contractors calling me every 10 minutes with questions or problems. By lunchtime, I was already exhausted and looking forward to a quiet evening at home. During my lunch break, I decided to scroll through social media while eating a sandwich at my desk. I rarely checked Facebook during work hours, but I wanted to see if there were any updates about the weekend's activities. That's when I saw Meredith's post. Amazing night out with my favorite girls. Party popper woman dancing. Chloe's birthday celebration was absolutely perfect. The post had several photos attached. The first one showed Meredith, Chloe, and Gabriella raising their glasses in a toast at what looked like an upscale restaurant. They were all smiling and looked like they were having a fantastic time. The second photo was a group shot of the three of them at their dinner table. I noticed immediately that Vanessa wasn't in either of these pictures, which struck me as odd since this was supposed to be Chloe's birthday party. But it was the third photo that made my blood run cold. Meredith had taken a wide-angle shot of the restaurant to capture the ambience, the dim lighting, the elegant decor, the bustling atmosphere of a Saturday night hotspot. It was meant to be an artistic shot showing the entire scene. In the background, near the bar area, I could clearly see my wife. Vanessa was there, wearing that same black dress, but she wasn't with her girlfriends. She was pressed against the bar, locked in what was unmistakably a passionate kiss with a man in a gray suit. His hands were on her waist, and her arms were wrapped around his neck. I stared at the screen, hoping I was seeing things wrong. I zoomed in on the image until it became pixelated, but there was no mistaking it. The gold bracelet on her wrist caught the light. The curve of her hip in that dress. The way she tilted her head when she kissed someone. It was definitely my wife, and she was definitely not at a girls' night out. My hands started shaking. The sandwich I'd been eating suddenly tasted like cardboard. I saved the photo to my phone, then closed the app, unable to look at it anymore. The rest of the workday passed in a blur. I couldn't concentrate on anything. Contractors were calling with urgent questions, but their voices sounded like they were coming from underwater. All I could think about was that image burned into my retinas. The drive home felt like the longest 30 minutes of my life. Every red light seemed to last forever. Every mile felt like 10. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I had worked myself into a state of barely controlled panic. Vanessa was in the kitchen when I walked in, preparing dinner like it was any other Monday evening. She was wearing jeans and a casual sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked so normal, so innocent. "Hey, honey, how was your day?" she asked brightly, not looking up from the vegetables she was chopping. "Fine," I managed to say, my voice sounding strained even to my own ears. "You sound tired. Rough day at the site." I stood there watching her, this woman I'd shared my life with for 8 years, wondering who she really was. Something like that. She finally looked up at me, and for a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in her eyes. Guilt? Fear? But it passed so quickly I might have imagined it. "Well, dinner will be ready in about 20 minutes. Why don't you go relax, and I'll call you when it's done." I nodded and walked upstairs to our bedroom, closing the door behind me. I pulled out my phone and looked at the photo again, zooming in on different details. The man was tall, probably in his early 40s, with dark hair and an expensive-looking suit. He was handsome in a conventional way, the kind of man you'd expect to see in a cologne advertisement. But who was he? And how long had this been going on? Over the next few weeks, I became obsessed with finding answers. I started paying closer attention to Vanessa's behavior, looking for clues I might have missed before. She seemed the same as always, affectionate, talkative about her work, excited about our upcoming vacation plans. But there were small things. She checked her phone more frequently than usual. Sometimes she would smile while reading messages, and when I asked who was texting, she would always have a ready explanation. Just Chloe being funny, or Meredith sharing office gossip. She also started working late more often. "Big client presentation coming up," she would explain. "You know how crazy things get during campaign season." I wanted to confront her directly, but something held me back. Maybe it was cowardice. Maybe it was the hope that I was wrong, that there was some innocent explanation for what I'd seen. Or maybe I just needed more proof before I could bring myself to destroy our marriage. 3 weeks after seeing that photo, Vanessa announced another girls' night. "The girls want to check out that new rooftop bar downtown," she said over breakfast. "Gabriella's been dying to try their signature cocktails." This time, I was prepared. "Sounds fun. What's the name of the place?" "Skyline Lounge, I think. It's on the 20th floor of that new building on Main Street." I made a mental note of the location. "Well, have a great time. I'll probably just stay in and catch up on some work." She kissed me goodbye that evening, looking stunning in a red dress I'd never seen before. "Don't wait up, okay? We might make a real night of it." An hour after she left, I drove downtown and parked across the street from the Skyline Lounge. I felt ridiculous, like a character in a bad movie, but I needed to know the truth. At 9:30 p.m., I saw her exit the building. But she wasn't with Chloe, Meredith, and Gabriella. She was with the same man from the photo, along with another couple I didn't recognize. They were laughing and seemed completely comfortable with each other, like they'd known each other for years. They walked to a black Mercedes parked nearby. The man opened the passenger door for Vanessa, and she got in without hesitation. I watched them drive away, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. I followed them at a distance, staying far enough back to avoid detection, but close enough to see where they were going. They drove through downtown, past the business district, and into an upscale residential area I recognized. They pulled into the parking garage of the Ritz-Carlton. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at the entrance to the garage, hoping they would come back out. Maybe they were just meeting friends for drinks. Maybe there was still an innocent explanation. But deep down I knew better. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing with questions and scenarios. When Vanessa came home at 2:15 a.m., I pretended to be asleep. She slipped into bed quietly, and I could smell unfamiliar cologne on her skin. Not the perfume she'd worn when she left, but something masculine and expensive. The next morning, she seemed tired but content. She hummed while making coffee and chatted about her evening, as if nothing had happened. "How was the rooftop bar?" I asked, testing her. "Oh, it was gorgeous. The view of the city was incredible. We stayed way too late, but you know how it is when you're having fun with friends." Every word was a lie, delivered with the same smile that had made me fall in love with her years ago. That's when I decided I needed professional help. I couldn't handle this alone anymore. I found a private investigator through a lawyer friend who specialized in divorce cases. His name was Marcus Webb, and he had been in the business for over 15 years. He was a no-nonsense guy in his 50s who had seen everything twice. "I need to know what my wife is doing when she says she's out with friends," I told him during our first meeting at his downtown office. He nodded knowingly. "How long do you think this has been going on?" "I'm not sure. Maybe months. I only found out by accident 3 weeks ago." "Do you want her followed, or do you want a complete background investigation on her activities?" "Everything. I need to know who she's seeing, how long it's been happening, and what exactly they're doing together." Webb quoted me his rates and explained the process. Within a week, he would have a complete picture of Vanessa's extramarital activities. He assured me that his team was discreet and professional. "One thing I should warn you about," he said as I was leaving. "Sometimes the truth is worse than what you're imagining." "Are you prepared for that?" I thought I was, but I had no idea how wrong I could be. Webb called me the following Friday with his preliminary findings. "Can you meet me at my office this afternoon? I have some things to show you." When I arrived, he had a thick folder waiting on his desk. Inside were dozens of photographs, phone records, and a detailed timeline of Vanessa's activities over the past month. "Your wife is involved with multiple men," he said without preamble. "The primary relationship appears to be with a man named Gregory Foster. He's a financial advisor who works in the same building as your wife's agency. They've been meeting regularly for approximately 6 months. He showed me photos of them together at various restaurants and hotels around the city. In some, they were holding hands across a dinner table. In others, they were kissing in parking garages or embracing outside hotel entrances. But that's not all," Webb continued, flipping to another section of the folder. "She's also been seen with at least 2 other men during the same time period." The next set of photos showed Vanessa with a younger man who looked like he was in his late 20s. They were at a sports bar, laughing and drinking beer. In one photo, his hand was on her thigh under the table. "This is Cameron Walsh. He's a personal trainer at an upscale gym downtown. 28 years old, single." The final set of photos was the most devastating. Vanessa was with an older, distinguished-looking man at what appeared to be a very expensive restaurant. They were dressed formally, and he was presenting her with what looked like jewelry. "Daniel Richardson, 54, divorced, owns a chain of luxury car dealerships. Very wealthy." I stared at the photos in disbelief. This wasn't just an affair, it was a complete double life. How is this possible? How did I not see any of this? Webb leaned back in his chair. "In my experience, people see what they want to see. Your wife is clearly very good at compartmentalizing her life. She's been extremely careful about maintaining her normal routine with you while pursuing these other relationships." He pulled out his phone and showed me a recorded conversation. "We were able to get this from her phone records. It's a call she made to someone named Jennifer, apparently a friend who doesn't know you." I listened in horror as Vanessa's voice came through the speaker. You should have seen Gregory's face when I told him I was married. He doesn't care at all. In fact, I think it turns him on. And Cameron is so different from Richard, so spontaneous and fun. Daniel took me to that new French place on Saturday and bought me these incredible earrings. I couldn't listen anymore. Webb turned off the recording and looked at me sympathetically. There's more, but I think that's enough for today. The question now is what you want to do with this information. I drove home in a complete daze. The woman I'd been married to for 8 years was a complete stranger. Not only was she cheating, but she was doing it with multiple men and apparently enjoying the deception. That evening, Vanessa announced yet another girls' night. Meredith's having a crisis with her boyfriend, she said. We're going to have a quiet dinner and girl talk session. Probably won't be too late tonight. I looked at her across the dinner table, this beautiful woman who had been systematically destroying our marriage for months, and felt nothing but emptiness. That sounds nice. I hope you can help her work things out. She smiled that same innocent smile that had fooled me for so long. Thanks, honey. You're so understanding. After she left, I called Webb. I want to know where she goes tonight. I want to see for myself. Are you sure that's a good idea? Sometimes it's better to just use the evidence we've already gathered for the divorce proceedings. I need to see it with my own eyes. I need to know for certain. Webb reluctantly agreed to have one of his investigators text me with location updates throughout the evening. At 8:30 p.m., I received the first text. Subject arrived at Meridian Hotel downtown. Entered bar area with unknown male, approximately 40 years old, dark hair, business attire. This wasn't Gregory Foster from the photos. This was someone new. At 9:15 p.m., subject and companion moved to restaurant area. Very intimate conversation. Physical contact observed. At 10:30 p.m., subject and companion left restaurant. Entered elevator together. The final text came at 11:45 p.m. Subject departed hotel alone. Companion remained inside. I sat in my car in our driveway, waiting for her to come home. She arrived at 12:20 a.m., looking slightly disheveled, but attempting to appear normal. How did it go with Meredith? I asked when she came to bed. Oh, you know how these things are. Lots of tears and wine. But I think she's feeling better now. I lay there in the darkness next to this person who had become a complete stranger to me. Everything about our life together felt like a lie. Our conversations, our intimacy, our future plans, all of it built on deception. The next morning, I called Webb again. I want to confront her, but I want to do it right. I want her friends to know what she's been doing. What do you have in mind? I explained my plan, and Webb agreed to help coordinate it. It would require careful timing, but if it worked, Vanessa would have no choice but to face the truth about what she'd done. The following weekend, I waited until Saturday afternoon when I knew Vanessa would be at her usual hair appointment. Then I called Chloe, Meredith, and Gabriella. I'm planning a surprise dinner party for Vanessa, I told each of them. Can you come over around 6 tonight? I want to celebrate her recent promotion at work. All three agreed immediately, excited to be part of what they thought was a romantic gesture. I spent the afternoon preparing the house, cooking Vanessa's favorite meal, and setting up a nice dinner presentation. When the girls arrived at 6, they were impressed by the effort I'd put in. This is so sweet, Richard, Chloe gushed. Vanessa is going to love this. Where is she anyway? Meredith asked, looking around. She should be home any minute, I said. But while we're waiting, I wanted to talk to you all about something important. I pulled out my laptop and opened the folder of photos Webb had given me. I found out that Vanessa hasn't been entirely honest about her girls' nights out. The mood in the room changed instantly. Chloe's smile disappeared. Meredith shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Gabriella looked confused. I showed them the photos of Vanessa with Gregory Foster. This was taken 3 weeks ago when she said she was out celebrating your birthday, Chloe. Chloe's face went pale. Richard, you knew, didn't you? The three women exchanged glances. Finally, Meredith spoke up. She made us promise not to tell you. She said you two were having problems and that she was figuring things out. What kind of problems? We weren't having any problems. She said you'd grown distant, Gabriella said quietly. That you didn't pay attention to her anymore, that she felt lonely in the marriage. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Not only had she been cheating, but she'd been telling her friends that I was a neglectful husband to justify her behavior. Did you know there were multiple men? I asked. Their expressions told me they didn't. I showed them the other photos, Cameron, Daniel, and the mystery man from the hotel. Oh my God, Chloe whispered. Richard, we had no idea it was this extensive. We thought it was just Gregory, Meredith said. She told us it was just an emotional connection, that nothing physical was happening. Before I could respond, we heard Vanessa's car in the driveway. The front door opened a moment later. Richard? Why are all the lights on? She called out. Whose cars are in the driveway? She walked into the dining room and stopped dead when she saw all of us sitting around the table with my laptop open in front of us. What's going on here? She asked, but I could see the fear in her eyes. We were just looking at some interesting photos, I said calmly. Would you like to see them? The color drained from her face. She looked at her friends, probably hoping for support, but they were all staring at the floor. Richard, I can explain. 6 months with Gregory Foster. 3 months with Cameron Walsh. 2 months with Daniel Richardson. And God knows how many others. I stood up and walked over to her. Which part would you like to explain first? She started crying, but they weren't the tears of someone who was sorry. They were the tears of someone who had been caught. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. And apparently, it's much worse than what your friends thought too. I gestured to Chloe, Meredith, and Gabriella. They thought you were having one emotional affair because you felt neglected. They had no idea you were sleeping with multiple men and lying to everyone about it. Vanessa looked at her friends with a mixture of desperation and anger. You told him? He already knew, Meredith said. He had photos of everything. The room fell silent except for Vanessa's quiet sobbing. I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. After weeks of uncertainty and pain, everything was finally out in the open. I've already spoken to a divorce attorney, I said. The papers will be filed Monday morning. I want you to move out by the end of the week. Richard, please, we can work through this. It was a mistake, all of it. I was confused and lonely and... You weren't confused. You were calculating. You created an entire alternate life while pretending to be a loving wife. That's not confusion, that's sociopathy. Her friends gathered their things and quietly left, each giving me sympathetic looks as they passed. I knew that whatever relationships they'd had with Vanessa were over too. After they left, Vanessa and I sat in our dining room surrounded by the ruins of our marriage. She tried several more times to explain or apologize, but I was beyond listening to anything she had to say. Why? I finally asked. If you were so unhappy, why didn't you just leave? She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I liked having both. I liked being married to you, the security, the stability, the life we'd built. But I also liked the excitement of being with other men. The attention, the novelty, the feeling of being desired by someone new. Her honesty was somehow more devastating than all the lies had been. She hadn't cheated because she was unhappy or neglected. She'd cheated because she was selfish and wanted to have everything without consequences. Did you ever love me? I asked. Yes, she said immediately. I do love you. That's what makes this so complicated. No, it's not complicated at all. Love doesn't coexist with betrayal like this. What you felt for me was convenience, not love. The divorce proceedings took 3 months to finalize. Texas is a no-fault state, but the evidence of adultery made the asset division much more favorable to me. I kept the house, most of our savings, and my dignity. Vanessa moved to Houston shortly after the divorce was final. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd started working at a different agency there. I also heard that Gregory Foster had ended their relationship once he found out about the other men. As I write this, it's been 18 months since that Saturday evening when everything came to light. I've spent the time rebuilding my life, focusing on work, and trying to learn to trust again. I started dating a few months ago, a woman named Lisa who works as a nurse at the hospital where my company is building a new wing. She's nothing like Vanessa in the best possible way. Sometimes I wonder if I should have seen the signs earlier, if I should have been more suspicious or more attentive. But I've come to realize that when someone is determined to deceive you, there's often very little you can do to prevent it. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was learning that the person I'd shared my life with for 8 years was someone I'd never really known at all. The woman I'd married existed only in my imagination. The real Vanessa was a stranger who had been using our marriage as a cover for living exactly the life she wanted. But I'm grateful for that accidentally posted photo. Without it, I might have spent years more living in a carefully constructed lie, never knowing that my entire marriage was built on deception. Sometimes the most painful truth is also the most liberating. Today, I'm building a new life based on honesty and genuine connection. I've learned to trust my instincts and to value authenticity above all else. And while the betrayal nearly destroyed me, it also freed me to find something real. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Maybe YouTube will no longer offer you my channel. So subscribe to it by clicking subscribe on the right under the video to receive new interesting stories. Also on the right of the video, there is a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to, and you can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.